Let's take a moment and ask one simple yet powerful question. What are you thinking right now? Because whether you realize it or not, that thought is quietly shaping your life. Thinking isn't just something we do, it's the very fabric of who we become. Your life in every moment is moving in the direction of your strongest and most consistent thoughts. What you focus on repeatedly begins to shape not only how you feel, but how you act and ultimately who you become. This is not a poetic idea. It is a psychological, emotional, and spiritual truth. Thinking is not something passive, it is a creative force. The mind is not a container simply storing data. It is a projector shaping the movie of your reality. And the power to think intentionally is the most overlooked but most transformative skill you will ever develop. Most people go through life thinking on autopilot, repeating old patterns of thought that were inherited from their environment, their past, their pain, or the opinions of others. Few ever stop and say, "What am I thinking and why am I thinking it?" And fewer still choose to shift those thoughts in an intentional direction. But once you begin to understand that thoughts are not just reactions, but choices, everything changes. Intentional thought is about becoming aware of the inner dialogue that plays beneath your surface, that quiet voice that wakes up with you and follows you into the mirror, the car, the job, the relationship, that voice that tells you what you're worth, what you're capable of, what you should fear, and what you should avoid. Most of that voice was formed in childhood through repetition, observation, and trauma. It became your belief system, but belief is nothing more than a thought you've accepted as true. That means beliefs can change. That means identities can shift. And the moment you start paying attention to what you allow to live in your mind, you take the first step toward inner freedom. Because the reality is this: your thoughts are either empowering you or imprisoning you. There is no neutral ground. Consider the thought, "I'm not good enough." It's a sentence, a mental pattern, a habit. And yet, how many lives has that one thought derailed? How many relationships, careers, and dreams has it silenced before they ever got the chance to breathe? That single thought can create anxiety, fear of failure, perfectionism, and even depression. But that thought didn't fall from the sky. It was either spoken to you, modeled for you, or formed during a painful experience. And if it was built, it can be unbuilt. That's the power of intentional thinking. It's the decision to no longer be a passive observer of your mental landscape, but the active author of it. This is not about positive thinking in the shallow sense. You can't just slap a smile over a wound and call it healing. Intentional thought doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means choosing to direct your focus in ways that serve your healing, growth, and purpose. When pain comes, you allow it to speak, but you don't let it lead. When fear arises, you acknowledge it, but you don't hand it the pen. You start to practice thoughts that create peace instead of panic. You start to interrupt the cycles that kept you small, silent, or stuck. You become conscious of the stories you tell yourself, and you begin to rewrite them. Thinking with intention takes discipline. It means turning off the background noise of comparison. It means taking time each day to check in with your own mind and decide what kind of energy you are going to live with. Are you feeding thoughts that energize you or thoughts that exhaust you? Are you focusing on lack or abundance, on guilt or grace, on defeat or resilience? And perhaps most importantly, are you aware that you have a choice? Because you do. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of them. That separation, that space is where transformation begins. You don't have to believe everything your mind offers you. You can examine it, challenge it, and replace it. This skill of thinking intentionally is like going to the gym, for your brain. It requires repetition. At first, it feels unnatural, even awkward. But the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you begin to notice that your default state is calmer. Your reactions are slower. Your confidence rises not because you've achieved perfection, but because your thoughts no longer sabotage you from within. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to support yourself. And that inner shift begins to ripple out into every area of your life, your work, your relationships, your health, your goals, because everything you do is rooted in how you think. And when you master the ability to think correctly, you stop waiting for life to change and you start changing it from the inside out. There's a fundamental difference between reacting and responding. And mastering this difference is one of the most empowering shifts a person can make in their thinking. Reaction is instinctive, it's immediate, emotional, and often driven by fear, anger, insecurity, or past trauma. A reaction happens when the mind is hijacked by the moment, when something touches a nerve that hasn't fully healed, and the body leaps to protect itself, often without thinking. It's that sharp reply in an argument, the impulse to lash out when criticized, the panic that rises during uncertainty. These are not conscious choices. They're habits built over time, often reinforced by pain. Responding, on the other hand, is intentional. It's what happens when you create space between the trigger and your action. It requires emotional maturity, mental discipline, and a willingness to pause and reflect. And in that pause, there's incredible power in daily life. We're surrounded by triggers. People will test your patience. Unexpected challenges will appear. Plans will fall apart. The world is full of situations that tempt you to react, situations where your old self wants to take the wheel. But the truth is, growth begins the moment you choose to respond instead of react. When you respond, you are thinking clearly. You are observing the situation from a place of awareness rather than fear. Instead of letting the moment control you, you rise above it and choose how you want to show up. That choice is what separates emotional chaos from emotional intelligence. Responding requires you to be present. It means stepping out of the storm of thoughts rushing through your head and grounding yourself in the reality of the moment. You ask yourself, what is really happening here? What is this situation inviting me to learn? Is this about them or is this about me? Those few seconds of questioning can mean the difference between escalating a conflict and creating peace, between repeating a pattern and breaking it. The pause becomes a sacred space where your best self has the opportunity to lead. Many people think strength is about fighting back, winning arguments, proving a point, or protecting ego. But true strength is often silent. It's found in the one who chooses not to yell back, the one who holds their ground with grace, the one who knows that their energy is sacred and refuses to spend it on things that do not matter in the long run. It takes far more courage to respond with wisdom than to react out of pain. Reaction is easy, it's automatic, but response is elevated. It comes from a place of clarity, not confusion. Let's look at how this shows up in relationships. So many breakdowns in communication happen not because of what was said, but because of how it was interpreted through reactive thinking. A simple comment can become a deep wound if it triggers a memory or insecurity. But when you respond, you listen differently. You don't just hear words, you seek to understand the intention behind them. You ask questions instead of jumping to conclusions. You slow down and choose empathy over assumption. And by doing so, you create connection instead of conflict. The same principle applies to your relationship with yourself. When you make a mistake, a reactive mind might say, you always fail, you're not good enough. That harsh inner voice is a reaction from years of self judgment. But a responsive mind pauses and says, that didn't go as planned. What can I learn? How can I grow from this? That small shift changes how you recover, how you heal, and how you move forward. Response is a practice of compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. In a fast paced world where everything demands your attention and emotion, choosing to respond becomes a revolutionary act. It's a decision to no longer be tossed around by every emotion or circumstance. It's the refusal to be a victim of your past reactions. It's choosing alignment over aggression, wisdom over impulse. And this doesn't mean being passive or silent. It means being powerful in a different way by mastering your mind rather than letting it master you. The greatest leaders, thinkers, healers, and creators have all learned the art of response. They don't rush to speak. They listen. They don't chase approval. They act with integrity. They don't waste time proving their worth. They live it. And the thread that runs through all of this is the ability to step back, think clearly, and move forward with purpose. When you commit to responding instead of reacting, you begin to shape a life that's not driven by emotion, but led by intention. You become the author of your behavior rather than the victim of your triggers. That's how power is reclaimed, one mindful response at a time. Your thoughts are not just fleeting moments of mental activity, they are the blueprint upon which your entire reality is built. Every action you take, every emotion you feel, every decision you make begins with a thought. The world you see outside is often a reflection of what's happening inside. What you consistently think about begins to shape your perceptions, your attitude, your behavior, and ultimately the outcomes you experience. This is not just philosophy, it's deeply practical. If you constantly think you're not worthy, you will subconsciously sabotage opportunities. If you constantly think the world is unsafe, you'll operate from fear and hesitation. Your thoughts set the tone, color, and direction of your daily life. And because most people are unaware of this, they continue to relive the same patterns over and over, never realizing that the key to transformation isn't always action, it's awareness of thought. Consider how thoughts quietly form your identity. The moment you begin to repeatedly tell yourself a story, it becomes part of how you define yourself. A person who has been told they're shy may continue to think, I'm not good with people, and therefore avoid social interaction. Over time, that thought isn't questioned, it becomes a belief. The belief becomes a habit. The habit becomes identity. And once something becomes your identity, it governs how you behave without even noticing. You no longer ask if it's true. You simply live as if it is. This is how the mind works. It loves consistency. It seeks to prove itself right. So when you think a thought, your brain starts filtering information to support it. That's why people who believe they're unlucky often find more misfortunes, and those who believe they can grow always seem to find a way. Your thoughts become your lens, and through that lens, your reality is shaped. This is especially powerful when you realize that your thoughts are not always facts. Just because you think something doesn't make it true, the mind has a habit of projecting fear, past pain, or future anxiety into the present moment. You might think, I'll fail if I try, or people will judge me, but those are thoughts, not truths. They're guesses, and most of them are rooted in old wounds, not current evidence, yet we allow these thoughts to dictate our actions. We build walls around dreams because of a sentence in our head. That's how powerful thoughts are. They don't just affect your inner world, they control your choices in the outer world. If you think you can't, you won't. If you think it's impossible, you won't try. But if you shift that thought even slightly, you create space for new possibilities to emerge. It's not enough to just think better once in a while. Lasting change comes from repetition. Thoughts become beliefs through repetition. That means if you want to change your life, you have to rewire the patterns you've been rehearsing mentally for years. This isn't easy. The mind resists change. It will pull you back to the comfort of old narratives. That's why intentional thinking is a practice. It's a daily discipline. It's the willingness to interrupt automatic thoughts and replace them with new ones that serve your growth, your healing, and your purpose. That doesn't mean forcing fake positivity. It means telling yourself truths that empower you instead of keeping you small. It's reminding yourself daily, I am capable of learning. I am allowed to grow. I don't have to be perfect to be worthy. My past does not define my future. These thoughts aren't just nice phrases, they're seeds. And with consistent practice, they begin to take root and grow into new mental habits. Another truth is that thoughts are contagious. The people you spend time with, the content you consume, the environments you immerse yourself in, all of these influence your thoughts. If you're surrounded by negativity, your mind will absorb it. If you constantly feed your mind fear, comparison, or criticism, your thoughts will mirror that. That's why it's vital to curate your mental diet. Protect your inner space like you protect your physical health. Be mindful of what you watch, who you listen to, and what you allow to repeat in your mind. Because the world inside your head becomes the life outside your window. When you truly grasp that your thoughts create your reality, you stop waiting for external change to feel better. You begin from within. You become conscious of what you think, how often you think it, and whether those thoughts align with the life you want to live. You realize that success, peace, joy, and confidence don't come from outside approval. They begin as thoughts that you nurture from within. And when those thoughts are practiced daily, they begin to shape your entire existence. The transformation doesn't start with a new job, a new relationship, or a new environment. It starts with a single new thought, repeated with intention, belief, and purpose. Mental discipline is the invisible foundation behind every form of real success. It's not the loudest trait, nor the one most celebrated on social media, but it is the quiet engine that powers every consistent achievement, every comeback, every personal evolution. Most people chase external validation. They look for talent, opportunity, or luck. They believe success is handed to a few chosen individuals. But those who understand the deeper game of life realize that what separates a person who rises from one who stays stuck is not how smart they are, not where they came from, and not even what resources they have. It's how disciplined their mind is. A disciplined mind knows how to focus when it would be easier to quit. It knows how to hold on to clarity in the middle of chaos. It knows how to stay grounded in truth while the world screams for reaction. That kind of mental discipline cannot be bought, borrowed, or faked. It must be built one choice at a time. In a world that thrives on distractions, mental discipline is rebellion. Every day we are bombarded with noise, notifications, opinions, doubts, comparisons. The undisciplined mind absorbs all of it and becomes scattered, anxious, reactive. It starts and stops, overthinks and underacts. It burns energy but creates little impact. But a disciplined mind filters the noise. It doesn't follow every impulse or emotion. It doesn't allow temporary feelings to dictate long-term actions. It stays committed to the bigger picture even when the path gets uncomfortable. That is what makes someone unstoppable, not their talent, but their ability to stay mentally aligned with their purpose. Mental discipline also means taking ownership of your inner world. It's recognizing that you don't have to believe every thought that crosses your mind. You don't have to indulge every doubt, every fear, every limiting belief. You can observe your thoughts, challenge them, and choose better ones. That's where freedom begins, when you stop being a victim of your own mind. This doesn't mean controlling every emotion or never struggling. It means refusing to be controlled by patterns that no longer serve you. It means practicing thoughts that align with your goals, even when your emotions resist them. It's saying, I may not feel motivated, but I choose to act with discipline. I may feel fear, but I choose to move anyway. I may not see the results yet, but I choose to stay consistent. Mental discipline separates those who only dream from those who build. It's easy to get excited at the beginning. Anyone can start, but sustaining something, whether it's a new habit, a business, a relationship, or a healing journey, that requires a mind trained in persistence. It requires you to stay the course even when it's no longer exciting, even when it's hard, even when you feel alone. That's when mental discipline becomes your anchor. It reminds you why you started. It silences the noise of self-doubt and reminds you of your ability to choose again. Discipline is also choosing your priorities over your preferences. It's understanding that the most successful people don't always want to do the hard thing. Uh, they've just trained themselves to do it anyway. They've learned how to delay gratification, how to resist distraction, how to stay focused on what really matters. That's a mindset, not a mood, and it's available to anyone willing to practice it. Discipline isn't about being rigid or robotic. It's about being deeply committed to your vision and refusing to let momentary emotions derail that commitment. Another part of mental discipline is knowing how to rest, not quit. The undisciplined mind swings between extremes, all in or all out, driven or defeated. But the disciplined mind understands rhythm. It knows when to push and when to pause. It knows how to care for itself without abandoning itself. That's what makes discipline sustainable. It isn't about punishing yourself. It's about guiding yourself with consistency and compassion toward the life you know you're meant to live. Ultimately, mental discipline is the daily practice of choosing who you want to be over and over again. It's waking up and aligning your thoughts, actions, And energy with the future you are creating, it's not glamorous. It won't always be visible, but it is powerful because the person who has trained their mind can walk through storms without being shaken. They can stay true to their vision even when no one else understands it. They can lead themselves when no one is watching. That's real power. And that power lives in every choice you make to think and act with intention, even when it's hard. That is the root of all success. Your mind is a garden, and every single thought you think is a seed. Whether you realize it or not, you are planting something every day, consciously or unconsciously. Some thoughts plant peace, others plant fear. Some grow confidence, others nourish doubt. The garden of your mind doesn't choose what grows on its own. It simply nurtures what you plant and water the most. And what many people don't realize is that they are walking through the emotional, spiritual, and even physical consequences of thoughts they've allowed to take root and grow over weeks, months, and even years. The way you feel about yourself, the opportunities you pursue, the relationships you attract, all are directly linked to the landscape of your mind. If you allow weeds of fear, insecurity, jealousy, comparison, or bitterness to grow unchecked, they will soon overshadow your potential, choke your peace, and rob your joy. This is why it is absolutely essential to guard your mental environment with the same vigilance you would guard your physical space. You wouldn't let garbage pile up in your home, yet many people allow mental garbage, self doubt, regret, shame, guilt, anger to build up over time. And because thoughts are invisible, we often underestimate their impact, but their effect is anything but invisible. You see it in the stress that wears on the body, in the anxiety that steals sleep, in the relationships that suffer, and in the dreams that never get pursued. And all of it begins with a single unchecked thought that grows when it is fed repeatedly. That is the danger of leaving your mind unguarded. The wrong thoughts flourish, and eventually you begin to believe that this mental chaos is just who you are. But it's not. It's just what you've allowed to grow. Just as a gardener removes weeds and intentionally plants flowers or food, you must learn to intentionally cultivate thoughts that align with the life you want to live. This doesn't happen by accident. You don't drift into mental peace. You plant your way there. You choose to meditate on gratitude, to reflect on purpose, to replace judgment with curiosity, and to water beliefs that lead to action and growth. This means being brutally honest with yourself about what you allow into your mind through the news, social media, conversations, and even the music and entertainment you consume. Everything you expose yourself to carries seeds. Some build your faith, others feed your fears, and over time, what you consistently expose your mind to will begin to shape the way you think and respond to the world around you. This also includes your inner dialogue. The words you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening are some of the most powerful seeds you'll ever plant. If you constantly tell yourself, I'm not enough, or I always mess up, those thoughts won't just sit idly. They will grow roots, deepen, and eventually bloom into self sabotage. But if you choose to speak life over yourself, even when it feels unnatural, saying things like, I am growing, I am learning, I am strong, you begin to water your worth. And that shift in language changes your internal narrative. It helps you step into your potential, not out of delusion, but because you are actively reprogramming the story your mind tells your heart. Guarding your mental garden also means creating boundaries, learning when to say no, not just to others, but to the parts of yourself that want to return to old habits of overthinking, dwelling, or replaying past pain. It means pruning the branches of your thoughts that no longer serve your future, even if they once made you feel safe. Sometimes we cling to harmful thought patterns because they are familiar, but comfort is not the same as truth. Growth is uncomfortable, and learning to plant new thoughts often feels awkward at first. But just like physical gardening, the more you tend to your mind, the more natural it becomes. When you make the decision to treat your mind as sacred soil, everything changes. You stop letting the world dump whatever it wants into your consciousness. You begin to recognize which thoughts are weeds and which are seeds of growth. You stop waiting for peace to come from the outside and instead start growing it from within. you become the caretaker of your own soul. And in doing so, you give yourself the power to not just think differently, but to live differently, because whatever you plant consistently, intentionally, and patiently will grow. That is the law of the mind. And if you want a life full of peace, strength, and purpose, then you must be vigilant about what you allow to take root. The future of your mind is being shaped by the seeds you are planting today.